fact that people don't run.
One of the reasons that regular people don't run is that they don't have millions of dollars of their own money, and therefore they have to rely on other people giving them contributions because they believe in them. The reason Mr. Shriver is not taking more than $300 in his campaign is because under the law you can't, because he did not accept a cap on what he's going to spend, and under county law, if you don't accept a cap on what you're going to spend, you cannot accept more than $300 per person in contributions. Mr. Shriver put in $300,000 of his own money, and because he did, under county law, I no longer have any maximums on my campaign, and it is true, the nurses did contribute several $1,000s to me because we worked on single payer together for so many years. But I think that it's fair the way it is. Zev actually wrote these rules, and I like them.
Mr. Shriver, I just want to clarify. It sounded to me, from what I had read, that you were critical of the maximum amount allowed under the current rules, and you felt that should be raised. Is that true or not?
You mean the maximum spending amount?
Yes.
Yes. Well, the average campaign, it sounds ridiculous, so I totally understand that it sounds ridiculous. The average congressional campaign day in the United States costs about $2.5 million. That's for 850,000 to 900,000 constituents to tell the story of your candidacy. Here, you have 2.1 million constituents, and your cap is 1.4 million in the second most expensive media market in America. Will that work? Will a candidate, particularly to run against an incumbent? Imagine if someone were to run against Zev. Of course it would never happen, but imagine, could somebody do that for $1.4 million? Run against Zev Yaroslavsky?
Should the limit be raised, Ms. Kuehl? Do you agree?
I think someone forgot to mention that the caps are optional. You either accept them or you don't. Mr. Shriver did not accept the cap. I did accept the cap. And so I don't think one can complain that something's imposed on them if they have a choice and they choose something. It is true that the county says if you don't accept the cap, then there is a consequence. And the consequence is you may not ask anyone for more than $300. So I think these rules actually are a little convoluted, but they're fair. I'm not going to spend more than $1.2 million. That is actually the cap's 1.4. I think you can reach voters with that. I think there's free media. I think there's earned media, many newspapers sitting here in the audience or on television. I think it's possible to do. You'll tell me after the campaign.
Let's do another round of questions. Ms. Kuehl, you go first this time. Your question to Mr. Shriver.
But Bobby, as you know, there are 80 school districts in the county, and each of them is in charge of their own education system. So what can the county do in terms of improving education for our children in the county?
That's a great question. Thank you. I think myself, the number one thing they can do is try to use the arts assets that the county controls to disseminate arts education into all those school districts. There have been some pilot programs done in LACMA where they bring in math teachers or English teachers, not art teachers, but non-art teachers, and try to show them artistic ways that they could teach subjects to their students. This has been very, very successful, particularly the students who come from the digital era age. They've been working really, really well. I think that's a very, very important thing. And I think the expansion of arts education in general in the schools that the county does run is a fantastic idea. We're the imagination capital of the world here in LA, and for us to harness the imagination capacity of our young people ought to be a significant goal in education.
And Mr. Shriver, your question now.
Sheila, as you know, particularly here in the Valley, there are a lot of below-the-line jobs in the television and movie business. The state has a tax credit system now that's only up to $100 million. Other states have several $100 million and $400 million. And at the Temple Israel debate last week, you said that you thought it was very difficult for California to match the amount of credits that these other states were giving. And I was surprised by that, since our economy is $100 billion bigger than the state of Louisiana, which has $250 million in credits, and bigger than the state of New York, which has $425 million. Do you think that the credit should be lifted from $100 million to a number that could make California, Los Angeles here in this valley, competitive with these other states who are trying to take our jobs?
Thank you. I think it's very nice of you to ask me that question, because you also know that I carried the first bill to establish the tax credit for the industry in California. And he really does know that. I mean, we talked about this and had a very good conversation, I think. I wish it could be raised. I would like it to be raised, but as you know, a tax credit is like a dollar for dollar, almost like a grant. Whatever you spend, if you get a tax credit, you get that whole amount off of your taxes. So it's very much like you, the citizens of California, investing in a movie when you want someone to come here. I would love it to be doubled. It was twice as big when I first introduced the bill. Very difficult. When I said difficult, I meant difficult to get through, because frankly, the other 119 people in the legislature, they don't love Hollywood, and they think it's a giveaway to the studios. So I would work very hard to up that tax credit.
Thank you. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to read questions from the audience, and I'm going to start with actually two people asked questions about a paragraph in the profile piece today in the LA Times about you, Mr. Shriver. Patricia Bell Hurst and Janet Couples can stand up if you like. Here we go. Okay, here's what the paragraph said. He's referring to you, Mr. Shriver. His chief opponent, former State Senator Sheila Kuehl, has cast Shriver as a dilettante. Her chief strategist, Park Skelton, pointed out that what led Shriver to run for the Santa Monica City Council in 2004 was his annoyance with inspectors who ordered him to trim the hedges of his hillside house above Will Rogers State Beach. It's telling, Park Skelton said, that Shriver missed nearly 1 in 5 council meetings during his 8 years in office. He was a fairly lackadaisical city council member.
Ouch. Totally ouch. What happened there in Santa Monica was that we were fined prospectively $25,000 a day if we didn't cut these hedges down. I went to my first city council meeting. I was minding my own business. I was running RED. I was working at Public Health in Africa. I went to my first city council meeting. A bunch of people asked the city to stop that. The city said, well, think about it. We walked across the street to a deli. We all signed our names on a piece of paper, and bingo, we had an organization, not quite as big as this one, but we had an organization. We continued negotiating with the city. They wouldn't give in, and I became very friendly, with the people who were coming to these meetings in houses around town, and they actually urged me to run. It wasn't my annoyance because I wasn't annoyed. I actually had grown to love some of the people I had met at these meetings, and I felt like I was defending them from an overreaching, overbearing, rude government. And when I won by such a big margin, a lot of people changed their attitude. So I don't apologize for that. I ran on behalf of my neighbors, not on behalf of my view overlooking the beach. It's not true. I could continue on my other matters, but my time is up. Maybe I'll get to discuss the attendance matter.
Ms. Kuehl, do you agree with the criticism that your campaign strategist had in this case?
From what I read, and I had not heard from Park what he was going to say, because people keep calling him and not me. He said that Bobby had missed 1 in 5 council meetings, and in Santa Monica we have a part-time city council. They meet kind of, Tuesday nights, not even every Tuesday night. So I think it was simply a statement of a fact about attendance. I know it sounds harsh, but sometimes your experience is characterized harshly. I don't agree that it's a bad reason to run if you're upset with the local government. It's a good reason to run if you're upset with them. But the idea of the hedge ordinance, as I understand it, is that a city chooses not to have people walled off from their neighbors. That was really the reason for it. I have hedges that I can't have as well. I have fences that I can't have as well. But the notion is you're not, sort of barricaded in. We have the same thing in the valley. So anyway, sorry, just stop.
Mr. Shriver, I think in fairness, you should be given some time to respond to that part of the allegation that you didn't attend
I'm happy to do so, and I thank you, Sheila, for mentioning that it is a part-time council. I had 2 day jobs when I was on the council, and when I missed meetings, I was working on the day jobs. RED 1, and people have said that the work that I did there has saved millions of lives. So I'm not going to apologize for being absent. The second point I would make is that I ran in 2004, but I ran again in 2008. So the voters, who are my boss, knew my attendance record. And they voted me in by more votes than the first time I ran. So they were my judge. It's not a political thing for a consultant to be slagging me in the LA Times. The voters approved my absences. And the third thing is that my record there was comparable to other people who also had day jobs and had to travel for their jobs. So I was there 83% of the time, someone else was there 87% of the time, someone else was there 89, someone else was there 92. So these numbers are taken out of context when they get in the hands of people who are trying to slag you in the newspaper.
John. Malcolm Mackey has a question. His question is for both of the candidates. Who are your largest contributors? Name them and the approximate amounts. And who are your major endorsers, if you name those people or organizations? And lastly, do you favor public financing of campaigns?
I have 4 large contributions and 2,490 that are not. The largest is $75,000 from the California Nurses Association. They are not nurses in the county hospitals. We simply worked together over 10 years on single payer and hospital safety issues, and they really believe in me. Second largest is a $10,000 contribution from a man who is a doctor at one of the hospitals and an old long friend and an activist in the LGBT community. We've been sort of at the barricades together, and he believes in me as well. There are a couple of people who have given $5,000. They are also longtime supporters, but not really part of any organization. And you can tell, California Nurses Organization, California Federation of Teachers, Lifeguards. My endorsements are on my webpage, and I'm proud of them.
I'd like to go next to a question, another question.
I didn't get a
I'm
chance to
sorry.
answer that. So I said earlier, all my people have given me $300, so I have nobody larger than that. I think, Sheila, you do have one other donation of $25,000, which you maybe didn't mention, from Ms. Munger, Molly Munger. So Molly Munger gave you $25,000. So that's your second largest donation.
UTLA endorsed me. What's better?
There you go. So there are several others, relatively large ones. In any event, my endorsers are also on my website. I'm very happy that many of the people who I work with in Santa Monica have endorsed me. The people in the city staff and others who work there. I work with them very hard. A couple of them are here tonight. You can ask them what I was like to work with at a local level, what I was doing in constituent service, and there we go. That's done. Thank you.
This question now involves the Department of Children and Family Services, which is another troubled department that the county is running, and the foster care system. And Sharon Landler asked this question. Sharon, thank you. The question is, what as a supervisor, what specifically are you going to do about, again, these departments, the Department of Children and Family Services and the foster care system? What needs to be done to fix it? Mr. Schreiber, I think you go first this time.
I think the Blue Ribbon Commission made a lot of very good recommendations, putting one person in charge. I always favor that because then you can hold somebody accountable. So I think that's a great idea. Second thing I think is a great idea is what they call performance-based contracting, which is different than the way we do it now. Now we do it, if you keep the person in foster care, you continue to get paid. If they graduate to a family, you stop being paid. Performance-based means that to the extent they graduate to a family, you get paid. To the extent you keep them, you don't get paid. It's a complete reversal. In some ways, the way the healthcare system is going to move to that, of the way money is allocated. So I'm big on following the money and making sure that the incentives for successful foster care parents are aligned. I think the other thing is the prestige of people who work in foster care needs to be increased a lot. People are unable to get enough foster parents to look after the kids that we have in the system right now.
doesn't seem to me that anyone in the county, or at least on the Board of Supervisors, are absolutely prioritizing the safety of these children. And that would be one of my great priorities. When I chaired the Health and Human Services Committee, Human Services is about foster care. The second thing is the Blue Ribbon Commission, as Bobby said, indicated they would like to see one organization in the county really in charge of these kids. I totally agree with that. Because right now it's stovepiped. Right now it's siloed. There are 5 agencies dealing with these children. They don't even talk to each other. So we need a silo buster, and that's what I've done the time that I've been in office, and that's what I would continue to do, as well as working more strongly with the cities to make certain that these parents get support.
Ellen Kornblum, Ellen asks, what is your position on large new development in LA County, specifically the 20,000 homes in Santa Clarita Valley project? Ms. Jewell?
Well, I have a record on this. I have not been in favor of large developments. As I told you before, I had to carry a bill so that at least these large developments had to identify their source of their water, real water, by contract, not what they call paper water. So I have not favored it. We managed to buy up most of the Santa Monica Mountains so that they wouldn't be developed. The Amundsen Ranch, Gillette Ranch, Lower Topanga, the Frank Capra property. Zev and Fran Pavley and I happily worked together to do that. I understand people need a place to live, but I think these large developments take a lot of resources, cause a lot of traffic.
I agree with the way you phrased that. I have a voting record on this in terms of actual developments in Santa Monica. I think if you examined it or asked my colleagues here, you'd see that I voted against most large developments, particularly commercial developments. There's a tremendous jobs housing imbalance on the west side, and that's part of the cause of the crazy traffic we all face. I do favor construction of some market rate and other affordable type housing because I think it's a traffic reliever. It needs to be built. We have a huge rent crisis in our whole country. A great piece in the New York Times a couple of days ago about how difficult it is for people to just, middle class, working people to afford their rent. So we do need to plan for and build more housing, market rate, and other kinds of housing.
So Sidonia Lax, Sidonia asked about, thank you. Ms. Jewell asked about your record, 14 years in the Assembly and State Senate. Some of which you have talked about, talking about some of the bills and your top priorities when you were in the legislature. But I'd like to carry it a step forward. There's been a lot written about how this election and the next election coming up will be a massive change in the Board of Supervisors. Some people are looking for young, fresh, innovative ideas. You're not a youngster anymore, because I'm not a youngster, but do you have the energy and do you have the innovative thinking to bring fresh ideas? Sorry.
Wait.
I think some people are saying.
Don't blame Sidonia for that question. She's 89 years old and the most innovative and freshest thinker that you're going to meet in this room. She stood up. I think many of you know her. And I think she wanted to bring this issue out because, first of all, the district skews a little bit toward our demographic, if you look around the room. And the other thing is, of course, as you know, innovation and fresh thinking is not the purview of any particular demographic. I didn't run till I was 53. People would think, well, that's not young. What is she going to do that's innovative? Well, I told you some of the bills, and the rest of them were just as innovative. There was no barrier against discrimination based on sexual orientation until I got there in my 50s and 60s. There was no barrier in terms of many of the other kinds of discrimination. There was no barrier, there were no laws about domestic violence. This is fresh and innovative thinking. This is what I would bring to this job.
I'm not sure, is the question asking me about my own age or?
Just comment.
The question was addressed sort of to Sheila.
About bringing fresh and innovative thinking. That's what the
I see, oh, it's not about age comparison. I would say that I've had a record as a problem solver, and I've innovated both in the public sector and in the private sector. My mom was running the Special Olympics. They didn't have money to expand. She asked me to raise some money. I thought about it. I made a series of records, Christmas records. I raised $100 million. No, I hated asking people for money. So I wanted to make a product to earn the money instead of making the money. Same thing in Red, where we wanted to get the private sector involved in HIV/AIDS. So instead of asking people for money, we thought, well, we'll make a product. So we persuaded a bunch of companies to make these products, and the money flows to HIV medicine purchases that way. I think in Santa Monica, the work I mentioned in cleaning up the beach, the work I mentioned and I hope I'm going to get a chance to mention in homelessness, I think I've demonstrated a real record of innovation.
Rebecca Rausch. Rebecca has a series of questions. First one has to do with, what will you do as a county supervisor to control taxes on residential properties? Mr. Schreiber.
Is that a series of questions?
Well, I'll just give one at a time.
I'm sorry, we all hate to pay taxes, and particularly to have them raised on property. I would never raise a tax unless the people voted for it. I think what Governor Brown has said about that is correct, and it's certainly the thing we did in Santa Monica. And I think that's what should be done here. To the extent people feel there's a project that they can be convinced by their elected leaders that there's a plan, there's a finite amount of money that's going to be spent, and it's going to be on time and on budget. If the elected leaders can convince you of that, then you will vote for a tax. If they can't, you won't. That's my position.
I think Prop 13 in many ways answers the question about taxes on residential property, and I would very strongly support retaining Prop 13 for residential property, not only single-family dwellings, but also commercial property that is residential property, that is apartments. What's the second part?
Okay, the next question for Ms. Kroll is, do you favor making changes to Proposition 13? Have a split role between residential and commercial? Are you in favor of any changes to Prop 13?
I do favor actually changing the way commercial property is taxed. I want to be very honest about that. We've had several debates, and most of us have said the same thing. Of course, Bobby will answer for himself. But I don't know of anyone who voted for Prop 13 that thought that they were protecting business property. We thought we were protecting our house, our grandmother's house, really residential property, because property values had shot up and nobody had the money for taxes anymore. I favor a gradual phase-in, which I think is being discussed for an initiative in 2016. I'm not involved in drafting it, but a gradual phase-in of taxing commercial property differently, looking at its market value. Disneyland pays 16 cents a square foot. I pay $16. I don't think it's fair.
I think, as Sheila mentioned, we have essentially the same position here. I think the most important thing that I think you've said in the past that I would like to emphasize, that it's very important to do this gradually. You can't have this thing go to market rate on all commercial property in the state immediately. We need to retain jobs in the state. We need to retain businesses that depend on their occupancy costs, and it needs to be done on a gradual basis. I think it's going to be tough for some people, and I recognize that, but I think, as Sheila's suggesting, we need, and 49 other states have succeeded in taxing their commercial property differently than their residential property, and they have held on to their businesses. So it's a doable goal. I sympathize with people who feel badly about it, but I think that we got to do it.
So we're going to do closing statements in just a minute, but I have one last question that Mr. Sherman brought up as well earlier that really requires a yes or no answer. If elected, would you put your primary district office in the Valley?
I would. First of all, Zeb's offices are in the Valley, and the county's not going to open up a whole bunch of new offices. They really don't want to. It's very expensive. Secondly, you may remember my assembly district office was in Encino the whole time that I was there. I felt very comfortable in the San Fernando Valley, I always have, and I absolutely guarantee that my district office says, because there's 2 of them, would both be in the Valley. And my West Side office would be at Starbucks, any Starbucks.
It really is true, actually. How many of you go and sit in Starbucks and put the computer on and have meetings now? Don't go to your actual office, right? It's true. So short is my answer. I love being here. I love hearing from people. That's the thing I like most about being in Santa Monica public office, was how much I heard in the Starbucks, by the way, from people who would walk up to me and go, hey, I saw you talking about that at the meeting. You're completely wrong what you said, right? And then they would tell you why you were wrong, and many times they were right. So I enjoyed that, because I come from a big competitive Irish family. So I was frequently told I was wrong by my siblings. To this day, I'm told regularly by them. So I would like to come out here, be in touch with you all, hear your opinions, specifically about things. I want to get out of the Hall of Administration and that whole atmosphere and circulate around.
Primary district office.
Yes, yes, ma'am, yes.
Primary district office in the Valley.
As long as you represent me in my lease negotiation.
Absolutely. And you promise it's going to be in Sherman Oaks, right? Anyways,
I'll do Sherman Oaks, raise your hand.
before we go to closing, a couple things. Number one, next meeting, 3rd Wednesday in May, is the debate for candidates for sheriff. All of them major candidates are confirmed. So be here for that. That'll be lively, as this was also. Number 2, please clean up afterwards. Also, Elke has recycling bag. Next, please after the meeting come up and speak directly to the candidates. And finally, we've talked a lot about Xavier Oslavsky. He will be the speaker at our October meeting, which is going to actually be, normally it's the 3rd Wednesday, it's going to be the 4th Wednesday of that month. But it'll be kind of a reminiscence of the 30-plus years he's represented Sherman Oaks in the city and county. With that, back to Dave. Thank you very much.
Mr. Shriver, you'll go first this time on closing arguments.
How long do we have on this?
90 seconds.
90 seconds. Good. Well, thank you all very much for coming out. Happy Easter and happy Passover to everybody. I'm thrilled to be here. I wanted to mention that I did not mention my principal endorsers, Bob Hertzberg and Tom LaVanche, who you know, have endorsed me. The LA Chamber has endorsed me, so I hope that's useful to you in thinking about my candidacy. I wanted to mention that I didn't get a chance to my work in homelessness. Tonight, there are between 6,000 and 7,000 homeless veterans on the streets of LA living in dumpsters. We have the first population of women combat vets in our history of our country. They are living in cars with kids. This is a deeply outrageous fact. We also have the largest VA property in the United States in West LA. They haven't built one bed for a female veteran on that property, even though we've been in 2 wars. This is a thing that got me so fired up when I first ran for office. I'm still fired up about it, because although we've had some successes which came out of litigation, unfortunately, we still don't have the right amount of beds there. And these are for people who have severe to moderate mental illnesses that are caused by war. This needs to be done on an absolutely urgent basis. The county has a lot of influence here because the property is unincorporated LA County. I'm looking forward, if I win, to getting into office and really, really, really making that happen as a matter of urgency. Dr. King always talked about the fierce urgency of now. That's the way I feel about mental illness and homelessness of these vets. I'm going to do something about it. Thank you for being out here tonight.
Ms. Buell.
Thank you very much. I've been endorsed by the Democratic Party of the San Fernando Valley and the LA County Democratic Party, as well as Bob Blumenfield, whom you elected to send to the Assembly and now elected to go to the city. So I just wanted to mention those 2. But as for myself, you will decide for yourself. You can see that there are some differences. One of the major differences, I think, is that this is not really an entry-level position. Running a 10 million person county that if it were a state, would be the 8th largest state, and 5 people being both the executive branch and the legislative branch, it would be good to have some experience about foster children, about healthcare, about transportation. And I think that actually is the defining difference, to be able to bring that experience, that understanding of the budget, that understanding of the implementation of these programs to the county, to work with the other 4 supervisors. You know, 4 of us will be new, 4 of the supervisors will be new in a 3-year period. That is a major loss of institutional memory. And I believe it could make a significant difference. I'd be very happy to be serving you here in the San Fernando Valley again. Thank you very much for all the time you put in to thinking about this, to spending your time with the candidates, and really caring about your city and your neighborhood and about the valley. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And before we wrap it up, we have gift certificates. If you have your red ticket, Jules has gift certificates, but before we do that, Dave, we want to thank you for preparing and executing so well this evening. Thank you. Please watch him on channel 2 and 9.
Thank you, and I wanted to thank everyone for coming out today. The questions were great, in many cases better than the stuff I had come up with. And thank you to the candidates. It was a good discussion of important issues, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay.